Welcome to the Looney Loomer Add a Bead instruction video. Adding beads to your loom projects can really enhance what you can create, but getting the rubber bands through the small holes on some beads is really difficult without the right tools. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the tools that we carry at Looney Loomer. Let's get started, shall we? This is called the small hole bead tool. The hook on this tool measures about 1.5 millimeters. It's very tiny and has a latch on it that will securely grab the rubber band as you start to bead. We're going to start by taking a bead and sliding it onto the shaft of the tool. Now we're going to grab a rubber band with a small hook end, and we're going to hold on to that rubber band and we're going to pull it to stretch it out as thin as possible. Slide the bead up the shaft and onto the hook itself. I do this with a combination of pushing the bead up while inching my right hand up the tool and grabbing the bead with those two free fingers of my left hand. It takes some practice, so don't get discouraged, but eventually you will wind up with the bead at the top of the tool and the tip of the rubber band inside the bead. If it makes it easier, you can try turning the tool upside down and letting the rubber band dangle, but you'll need to thin it out a bit in order to get the bead to go over it. Now you have the bead fully on the rubber band, and you can go ahead and put the ends of the rubber band on your loom where you want the bead to be in your project. Now we're going to move on. I like using these large flashy sequins on with my bracelets and necklaces. It makes the items look more like real jewelry, and I love anything shiny. But threading the doubled up rubber band through these tiny holes would be near to impossible without the small hole bead tool. Here's how to use this amazing tool to put sequins on your loom projects. Using firm pressure, gently force the small hole bead tool through the hole at the top of the sequin. Slide the sequin down the shaft of the tool. Grab a rubber band with the hook and gently pull on the open end to make the rubber band as thin as you can. The holes in these sequins are very small, but they're very sturdy, so they can take enough pressure to get the rubber band through. Now you should be able to just slide the sequin up the hook and onto the rubber band. Be sure to keep the tension tight. From this point, you'll have to decide how you want your sequin to look on your finished project. If you want it to just stick out, then you would just loop the two ends of the rubber band over your pegs and continue looming like normal. I like to use my sequins as dangles to hang from my bracelets and my necklaces. To do this, you need to make a rubber band into the loop at the end so you can add it to one peg of your loom. To make a loop out of the rubber band, you need to slide the tool back onto the open end of the rubber band so that both ends are on the tool at the same time with the sequin suspended in the middle. Now pull the hook so that it catches that far loop of the rubber band and drag it through the center of the other loop. Continue to pull on that end of the rubber band until you pull it all the way through the center of that loop. Pull enough to cinch it tight so that loop is really secured onto that sequin. Now you can unhook the tool. Give the loose end of the rubber band a really good tug to cinch that loop down tight. Now you can loop that open end of the rubber band onto your loom wherever you want the sequin to dangle. There are two kinds of buttons. One kind has a shank at the back, and for that kind you would use the instructions for adding a charm, which will come later. This is adding buttons with holes. To start, push the small hole bead tool through one of the buttonholes. The hook on this tool measures just over 1 millimeter, so the buttonholes must be at least a little bit bigger than 1 millimeter in order for this to work. Once you're all the way through, grab the rubber band with the hook. Pull the rubber band through the hole until it's about halfway on this side and halfway on that side. Let go of the rubber band with the hook and use the hook to go back through the button using the other hole. While holding the rubber band, grab that end with the hook. It's a little confusing, but you're going to bring the rubber band back through the second hole. This is the view from the other side. You've pulled one end of the rubber band through the first hole. Now you're going to pull the other end of the rubber band through the second hole. The object is to get both ends of the rubber band on the same side of the button. This is a close-up of the second end of the rubber band coming through that second buttonhole. Notice that I've kept the pressure tight on the first end of the rubber band that I pulled through so that it doesn't slip back out again. Now you have both ends of the rubber band on the same side of the button, and you can go ahead and add it to the loom where you want the button to be in your pattern. The small hole bead tool makes it easy to add charms to your loom projects. I'm going to show you how to add a loop to your charm so that you can attach it to your loom. Insert the small hole bead tool through the eye of the charm. With the charm on the shaft of the tool, grab a rubber band and pull it through the eye of the charm. Slide the end of the rubber band farther down on the shaft of the tool and loop the free end of the rubber band onto the hook so that the charm dangles in the middle of the two ends. Pull on the hook tool to draw the second loop through the center of the first loop, creating a loop to hang the charm by. Now you would just add the open end of the loop to your loom wherever you want your charm to hang, and then you would just loom your pattern like normal. This tool has one end that works well with the holes in the beads the size of pony beads, and the other end works well with perler beads. Using the right sized hook gives you the most control when pulling the rubber bands through the bead. Here we have a star-shaped pony bead on the shaft of the tool. Grab a rubber band and hold the open end to apply some pressure to the band. Turn the hook upside down so that the bead slides down over the hook and the end of the rubber band. Hold the open end of the rubber band to keep the bead from sliding all the way off the tool, and you can now unhook the tool. Now you can place the bead on the loom where you want it to be in your pattern. You can use the double-headed bead tool to add perler beads to your rubber bands. You can add as many perler beads as you like, but a word of caution is the more beads you add, the harder it is to hold the ends of the rubber band without them going back through the beads. With the beads on the hook, grab a rubber band. Hold the open end of the rubber band and turn the hook upside down so that the beads can slide onto the rubber band. You may have to help them onto the band with a free finger. Hook the open end of the rubber band onto the loom where you want your beads to appear in your project. Use the hook to pull the opposite end out enough to be able to hook the other side onto the loom peg. This tutorial has been brought to you by the Loony Loomer. I hope you enjoyed it.